through the show. So I do apologise that if you were coming to see Andy talk about the process of making toys, that, as I say, Andy's taken on well. We obviously wish him a speedy recovery and hope he gets better soon. In the meantime, however, I have found 3 rapscallions, 3 troublemakers, 3 people who I really want to see a remake of 3 Men and a Baby. Because I think it would be the best TV sitcom of all time. Please welcome to the stage James Roberts, Jack Lawrence, and Mr. Nick Roche. Woo! Could we just drop the stage lights ever so slightly, please?
So we don't look like our publicity photos if you put a really strong light on us. I like what you say about changing the panel, because like in comics you have to change panels all the time, David, so it's like, you know how it feels like.
You see, that's it. I feel, well, I don't know, I feel like when James puts a script together, it's done.
For him? Yeah. I won't work with him anymore. So.
Oh. Wow.
We found out, yeah.
Really?
That's why Jack is between us. And that's the problem start.
This is it now. It's all the gloves are off. The license is away somewhere else. People are doing it now. We get into the good.
What do you want to know?
Nothing is off limits.
Oh wow! You hear that?
That's not.
All right. Okay. So James, who's your least favourite artist to work with?
Let me answer that.
Go on then, Nick.
That stays between James and our Twitter DMs. Our mutually assured destruction chain of correspondence that we have. So,
we are not involved in that Twitter DM, so I mean that's probably your answer.
It feels slightly better that it's now an X DM.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's even worse, isn't it?
Going to a gentleman's club in Derby. So
the good thing is that artists tend to hate themselves more than
That is true.
Yeah, that's true.
But you showed me that even I can't hate myself as much as you hate some artists, James.
I do apologize. This is going slightly off the rails.
Nick is the man's unhinged. That's what we said.
He's come to TF Nation expecting a good time, and he's brought his family with him.
Yeah, what was I thinking of? Hi, Daniel.
Where's Daniel? Is he here?
He's here. He's quiet. He's fine. You haven't got the switch on again, have you? No more screen time, okay?
This is what I'm saying. Right, I was inviting these 3 up because who was here for the last panel, the stamps? Yeah. So what we were talking about in that panel, which I thought was really fascinating, was the legacy which was preserved in the stamps of Marvel UK, and how the trickle-down effect of those issues that were done has really paved the way and shaped Transformers into the modern era, whether it be characters, personalities, things like that, or even the work that these 3 gentlemen have done over the lifespan of their careers. But what I really wanted to do was sort of take it back to those early days, because I think a lot of times when we've had you guys on panels before, we've been talking about what you're doing now, what's coming up, and things like that. And I really want to spend a little bit of time with you just taking it right back to those days when you were kids and you really got into the hobby. So I guess, where did it all start for the 3 of you? I mean, obviously not together, but you know, as fans. Jack, do you want to take it?
Well, I'm the oldest here. By not a huge amount with James.
The gap seems smaller every year, to be honest. It felt like a
smaller or more?
No, smaller.
Smaller, yeah. Well, you've done things in your life that are very adult, but I have never and will never do.
And coming from Jack Lawrence.
Our paths were very divergent earlier on. I was there almost at the start. My brother was like a boy, and he was a football fan and car fan. I didn't like cars at all. Wasn't interested. And at the time, I was a big He-Man fan. So on a particular summer holiday, or whenever it was, I got Skeletor bought for me, and which was a replacement Skeletor. I did already have him, but his head had come off. I don't know why I told you that. And he got Bumblebee and Brawn. And I was like, well, definitely got the better deal here because they're really boring. A short time, in my mind, I don't know how long after that it was whichever, I never remember if it was 84 or 85 in this country that we actually got.
85.
I thought it was 85, yeah. So, a short time after that, we saw the tapes, and that was when, because I'd seen Bumblebee and Brawn, wasn't interested and just hadn't delved any further, and then I saw the tapes and Ravage and Laserbeam, and that just sparked it for me, and then I just absorbed the bio cards on the back, so I got Frenzy and Laserbeam, and then the bio cards just sucked me in. The fiction was what really sucked me in, and that would be the first thing that I would look at when I was looking at buying a new toy. Be like, well, yeah, but what's their function? And are they, holy moly, it's getting worse.
Could we just drop the lights just a little bit? Sorry.
I feel like I'm gonna Christopher Lee in any moment.
Is it okay?
This whole does.
Or darker? Is that? That's fine. That's it. Okay.
So yeah, from very early on, it was the fiction that I really responded to, and it was all Buddy Ansky, wasn't it? So even before the comics stuff, he was kind of luring my young, fragile mind, and
like a pied piper.
Yes.
Bio cards.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. So that was me.
Yeah. James.
Yeah, missed the boat. I was the right age for the comic. I would have been 8, or just nearly 8 when the UK comic came out, but I didn't notice it. I remember seeing the first instalment of the animated, the original cartoon on Whack-A-Day or whatever it was, a summer holiday thing.
Did you see that the very first episode first?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's really weird because I make a habit of not being up early in the morning. So it's weird that like.
Yeah, no, I'd been up and done my chores, did clean the chimney and stuff, and so I was allowed 5 minutes entertainment before. And I remember being blown away when it said 4 million years later as the caption, after the crash. But again, it wasn't enough I didn't do anything with that, I just registered it. And then it was for my 10th birthday, I got Blitzwing. Didn't ask for it. My grandparents used to go sort of travelling. What's this?
I didn't ask for this. Looking at TF Nation. I didn't ask for any of this.
My grandparents used to travel, and I said, because they'd gone to America, I said, bring something, back as a surprise from America. And they brought back this thing, which I wasn't that excited by until I opened it and played with it. So that was November '86, and then went to see the movie the next month. December, for those that don't know, and then I bought TF UK issue 113 in the following May, I think, and that was it.
From then on, yeah.
But it's cartoon, movie, toy, comic, the spectrum.
I like the idea that you got to the comic and you were like, right,
Yeah.
I've reached the promised land now. Nick, what about yourself?
Yeah, like Jack sort of saying about not being into like cars as a little boy, and I kind of like I'm not into cars now. I don't know how to drive. My wife isn't here at the moment, so I can say that. Like without being things thrown at me, because it's a massive bone of contention. But I really like cars when I was 4 years old, though, and I really liked anything to do with cars, and where cars were kind of like the main draw or the main kind of character in some way. So like things like Herbie and Knight Rider and the A-Team and Dukes of Hazzard, where the vehicle is like as prominent as any of the human stars and more interesting in a lot of ways. So I kind of really associated with it's the cool cars that had character. And when Transformers came along, that's kind of what grabbed me. It was sort of the cars are the character. It was the ads that got me first. We had like knockoff Lego, didn't even have real Lego. And I remember the ads, Autobot Jazz from Hasbro, and it was just really thrilling, exciting. The music, the hadn't seen the cartoon yet, but I was just obsessed with these ads and the idea of the transforming robots. And despite it showing very clearly in the adverts that this car can turn into this robot or vice versa, I did refuse to believe that that's what you would get if you bought the toys. So I assumed if I ever saw them in the wild, you would see an Optimus Prime in the box robot plus a Optimus Prime truck as well. You know, and so basically at age 4 I invented Action Masters. You're welcome. So yeah, I didn't have access to Transformer toys for quite a while. So using that knockoff Lego we used to make like our own Transformers at home. And then, yeah, kids in school started bringing comics and toys. I got Hot Rod. It was my first ever Transformer, so that caused a few problems and I'm dealing with ever since, as you all know. But he, I didn't get it for a birthday or for Christmas. I got it in like the middle of 1986. And my dad gave it to me. And it's really, I mean, Dad was lovely and stuff, but he was never the sort of guy who wanted lunch break at work would pop into the toy shop and buy you like a large Transformer. And so it just really stuck with me. And it's only recently I was going through like old school copybooks. At the end of 1985, I'm writing my old school copybook. My news for today. Today is Monday. It is raining. My daddy says that if I stop sucking my dummy, I can get a toy robot. And that was in the end of 1985. And so in the middle of 1986, I got Hot Rod, and so I'm only reverse engineering it now. That was like I obviously kind of kicked the habit.
We have figured it out.
There's a lot to unpack now.
The Oppenheimer style biopic of Nick. You have to see it at the IMAX.
So that was I had Hot Rod, and like Hot Rod was my first Transformer. So and then the comics I started reading those at Target 2006, and so the first issue said the new leaders on it, and that's kind of talking to lots of people about it over the weekend. That's kind of what I associate Transformers with being for the longest time. That it wasn't just Optimus Prime Megatron. It's like this year it's a new turnaround. Here's new characters. It's going to be a whole new direction and stuff. So I think that's why I kind of like the movie era Transformers, and they're my Transformers. That was my first introduction to all that nonsense.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, thank you. I've been off my dummy now for a year to the mass.
But how long have you been off your Hot Rod kick?
Yeah,
No, that's never going to happen. So, going back then, what is that? Do any of you have that moment? Maybe it'd be a comic book issue, a panel, something like that just stuck with you and just made you end. That's it. Jack, I know you talked about bios. Like, is there that one bio or that, like I said, one comic book page that just made you go, yeah, I'm down for this?
I think that it was the collection of that first year, all of those bios. They were almost every personality type was kind of represented, and you didn't actually back then. You didn't have to buy the toys to get those bios because there was so much merchandise. I had like a notebook, and on the back of the notebook was Sideswipe's entire bio, and I think Skywalk, and that sort of thing was just everywhere. So you could have these, find out about these characters really, really easy. It was very accessible, and everyone was there. Everyone you could, especially as a child, where things are, you don't understand the greys of the world, everything's black and white, and then suddenly there's these really interesting characters, like Thundercracker is a Decepticon, doesn't really believe in the cause. As a kid, you're like, that's really cool. Yeah. Because all adults, in a child's mind, all adults are right and certain of everything, and now here are these toys, these characters who I saw as adults, and he's not sure of everything. So it was really that, and then that was kind of what sucked me into it, the bios. But then, as I say, the merchandising was everywhere, and the Marvel. I think I was reading the Marvel comic before I didn't see the cartoon on the Wackaday, because in summer, it's not even really in the summer holidays, and in the summer holidays, my mum was like super efficient. So in the summer holidays, it was up at 7, get dressed, wash and dress, we're going out, we've got things to do, and then we'll be back, and then we can relax for the rest of the day, which meant that I missed all the kids' TV shows. But what we did have was the comic, which really, it seems so bizarre to say this, the comic had TV adverts. Didn't it? The Marvel UK,
yeah.
It was an advert for the Marvel Transformers comic from Marvel, and I was like, what's that about? And it was 25p then? Something like that.
Yeah, it was about 25.
Yeah, and my mum was constantly looking for ways to shut me up. And it was something that was going to take me away from her line of sight. I think that was a positive. She was like, oh yeah, I'll get that at the newsagents, we'll get that in every week for you. So, you know, then you've got these wonderful toys with these great wires, and it's supported by this, and then the VHS thing that comes out. And it wasn't really necessarily an aha moment, I'm in this. It was that it just kind of grew around me. It was so all-encompassing back then. Yeah, everything kind of, you know, I'm still a He-Man fan, but they were kind of edged out then because this phenomenon was taking place.
I think if you're relatively new to the fandom, you know, just because you were born post 2000, you probably wouldn't have a clue of just how much of a deluge
Absolutely.
it was back then.
That's really the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
It literally was everywhere.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. There were, posters for the toys on bus shelters and things. It was just everywhere.
Yeah, and you now if there's a movie comes out or whatever it might be, you might get a movie and you might get a comic book, but it's highly unlikely. Whereas it was cartoons, comic books, toy shelves, and you'd walk into a toy shop and it would be a wall.
Yeah, and the whole landscape of things has changed so drastically. Because yes, there would be, but it wouldn't just be for Transformers. Like the new Star Wars film comes out, and you go to the new toy range comes out, and you go to a toy shop, and there would be an event. Remember when The Empire Strikes Back came out? Like everyone, like all parents somehow knew. I don't know if there's a newsletter that goes around or something, but they all knew got to get down to Blundell's at the weekend because the new Star Wars toys are out, The Empire Strikes, and Darth Vader's going to be there. So we've got to get down there. And we did, and we could not get into that shop. The toy shop was just a sea of kids, and I think we waited there for, it's a kid's memory. We were there for ages, and there was no hope of getting in there. And I think someone, I don't think my dad was there, because he never was, someone lifted me up so I could look in, and I just saw the wall of Wampers were at the front of the store, and that's all you could see. Other than that, it was a sea. Just saw Darth Vader's head. He was like, we got to go, we can't be here all day. So we went. But that sort of thing happened.
I saw a wall of Wampas open for the Zootons back in 2003.
It wasn't the best, but yeah, it happened.
Nick, what about you? Any particular one thing that stands out as kind of a defining moment of your childhood?
It's possibly like asking in this order that I might be gazumping one of James's answers, but it's no, probably not. I think that issue 86 of Transformers is still kind of foundational. Issue 86 is one of the issues that's part of Target 2006, and Target 2006 was the Transformers movie tie-in, and that had artwork by Jeff Senior of Ultra Magnus versus Galvatron, and it had been 7 or 8 issues of build-up of these two kind of characters kind of circling each other, and then finally deciding the only way we're going to resolve this crisis is to fight. And the kind of splash page on that is the famous Transformers image now is like Ultra Magnus hurtling down the freeway in truck mode with Galvatron, like, you know, on top of his cab, like ripping out the windows. And just seeing that damage being done to a Transformer may have had an effect on the things I would have done later on. And you know, his car swerving out of the way. It's so an energetic panel. Like Jeff Senior just draws with his whole core, you know, like you can see the energy in it. And I think that's just one of those bits that just influenced me. Ultra Magnus and Galvatron didn't come out until a month or so later. Although they were out, but I didn't get them until Christmas time, a month or so later. And it was one of the first things I did with these like brand new toys that Santa gave me. So it's just like throwing Galvatron off the coffee table with, we had a coffee table. With Ultra Magnus in truck mode. And so I hadn't seen the movie by that stage, and I think the movie obviously kind of gets its claws into it different ways. I mean, like, I had seen the first episode of the cartoon and seen Arrival from Cybertron on VHS. I caught the first episode when it was aired on Wackaday as well, and like that as well, like, yeah, there's something really having watched those first few episodes over and over again with the kids, it stands up in a way that maybe not all of the rest of the series stands up. You know, you watch Transformers movie, I still think absolutely rocks. But Morpheus CI is really great. So more rival from Cybertron, whatever you want to call it. That first pilot episode is really strong as well. It's after that the kind of quality it becomes variable. But those first pilot episodes, like Optimus Prime rolling down the hill after like that thing where I like the vehicles were the characters, you know, I really felt for that lorry that was rolling down the hill and people going, Prime, you know, and that was the cliffhanger, you know. So those would be the earliest kind of moments that really had me, the drama of that. But maybe I guess from an artist's point of view, from an being influenced to sort of like recreate it with my toys and then draw stuff like that, it probably is that Jeff Senior splash page, I think.
James, what about what from this really wholesome children's entertainment did you really stick with you and help you to
become the
balanced human being that you are? Is that right? Yes.
You see, we've all got slightly different ones, which says its own, you know, tells its own story. So mine was, I don't know in what particular order, but the first issue I bought of the UK comic was 113, but the first issue I read didn't belong to me. It was a friend of my brother's, and it was issue 96, which was the beginning. It was Simon Furman and Jeff Anderson, and I didn't know any of the lore. I just read it as a newbie. But the last page of that is a splash page, and it's Optimus Prime's dismembered corpse, you know, and you know he's this is it. So
I feel like this is turning into some kind of therapy session.
but I knew enough because, you know, of the ubiquity of this was in early 87. So I knew enough of, you know, Transformers because they were everywhere, that this was a really big thing. And okay, in the context of the story, it's not really him, but I thought it was him. And it was the death of this character, the incredible detail to my, whatever, 10, 11-year-old's eyes, because you could see, you know, his fingertip was missing, and you could see the bits in his finger. And then, of course, I didn't get the next issue, you know, because, you know, that was at someone else's house, so that haunted me. And then you mentioned, so for us, you know, in the UK, Arrival from Cybertron is what we call the first three-parter, and that bit where, some memory may be hazy, but basically near the end of the last episode 3, and the Decepticons take off, and the Autobots have failed, and Prime loses it. Prime's really, and that didn't happen in children's TV stuff, you know, that the good guys got pissed off.
That hasn't happened that much even since in Transformers or you know, that kind of Peter Cullen's been on stoic mode since then. Do you know what I mean?
And then
we're talking about the sideswipe giving me your rocket pack.
Yes.
No!
That's real dad energy. We're trying to get the tent put up.
So we're getting a lot actually about both of your backgrounds.
Sideswipe, I'd be the guiding rope.
But that was
the bathroom block is meters away.
And I did go and see the movie, as I said. I went with my mum and my brother, and he sat on my lap, and it was an incredible experience. And then he wet himself on my lap. He was 22. So I'm calling you out now, Adam. But the incontinence never really went away, which was...
I love the fact that we're just talking about Peter Cullen, who obviously reveres his brother and tells great story, and now we're getting the flip side of that.
Yeah. And James, what would you say to Adam if he was here?
Yeah, stop doing it, because it's a way of getting attention, you know. He's married now, it's not gonna fly. Whenever he sits on my lap now, I'm like, come on. If he sits on my lap and we put the movie on, then I'm right back there, you know. Anyway, is that okay?
Poor Adam. Yeah, it's fine. Moving swiftly on. So, you know, whether it be picking up a pencil or starting to write for the first time, what sort of, what did Transformers inspire you in that field? When you picked up a pencil, was it Transformers that you were drawing? Was it He-Man? Were you writing, novellas, yes, but, you know, were you writing your own little short stories in a notebook. I like Optimus Prime, and he did this. And, go on, James.
No, I mean, so I can't overstate the extent to which getting into Transformers just sparked every other interest I had. I mean, prior to that, we got proper Lego in our house because we were little kids.
But I better spell the Wii though.
I didn't even know they did.
Bloody Adam.
R.I.P. Yeah, so prior to that, I mean, I was kind of into Lego, but I wasn't really into toys, didn't read any comics. So the Transformers UK comic got me into comics across the piece, and that's what in turn got me into writing. You know, as you say, my school jotter, these extremely long fanfics, which just existed to feature whatever the new range was. And I remember there's some incredible dialogue in those early ones, like here's the double target masters, which in universe that's what they're all called and stuff. But just my little pages after pages of sort of handwritten pencil drawings and stuff. And so it was all consuming, but it sparked lots of creativity, which wasn't there before for me.
Nick?
Yeah, it's the same. I think it's I was drawing whenever I was like watching on TV or no Lego, but lots of TV. And like things like Knight Rider, so I would draw like Knight Rider comics. I love He-Man as well, so I used to do like He-Man comics. And actually there weren't comics at this stage because I didn't understand comics, and some would say. So they would just be storybooks essentially, like walls of like text in the top half of the page and illustration at the bottom, and vice versa. But I knew what numbering was and what that meant to comics and periodicals, so I started numbering my Transformers comics, and I started those when I was like 6, I guess. And like that, I'd like to put in I used to invent like new characters and new city bots and stuff. But otherwise, it was mirroring quite often what was going on in the comics, and so pretending it was different, but wasn't really. And I stopped drawing those comics in secondary school. I was still doing like one every 2 weeks. For no one, I wasn't like mass producing them or whatever, so they finished on like issue 114 or something like that. But that stage it was like 90s, and things were starting to get gritty. I'm not sure if G2 had kind of been. Oh yeah, G2 had just come out, so obviously everything started looking like big chinks, wires falling out of the place, even more oil gushing everywhere. But that was always influenced. Those comics were influenced by whatever I was kind of into at the time. And just like a massive spurt of creativity that as well, and that's what gets you into writing and building stories. It's like they're trying to hijack it as well, and you probably won't thank me for it, but like my son Daniel is here today as well, and he was been working really hard. He was trying to get a fanzine done ahead of TF Nation this year, and he's got an amazing idea for it. I think he's going to try and bring it with him next year and stuff. But it's so weird because I've seen him do all the stuff that I did as well, and he sees me do it now, but he hasn't seen my kids' stuff. You know, I did it when I was his age, but he's just as sort of like brings his copybook everywhere, and wants to create like new stories and create like new. He's really good at concepts. He's not just sort of like, and Optimus Prime did the same thing that he did in the comics, like the way I would do it. He's got like really new ideas for kind of splicing genres and stuff. So it's a real thrill like seeing him do stuff. And I think like a weekend like this is going to really kind of like kick that off as well. So yeah,
brilliant. Jack.
I mean that's how I related to everything that I consumed, like toys and film. I would have to draw. I would get a new toy, I'd open that toy, do what needed to be done to it, whether that was transforming it back into a robot mode, whatever, or if it was a He-Man toy, you have a little fiddle with it, and then it would be placed, and then I would draw it. And that was how I related to so my toys are all in really good condition because they just got drawn. I was obsessed like Gremlins. I'm still obsessed with Gremlins, and so Gremlins and Transformers did actually kind of, I guess, fight for my attention for a while because we did get Gremlins in the summer, I think, and it was Christmas '84 was my Gremlins Christmas. The next one would have been Transformers. But I just drew Gremlins constantly. I'd just draw one, and then that was it, and then just draw another one, and then that was that, and just draw another one. So yeah, absolutely. My nerddom and my needs to create are kind of what they're so tightly bound together. They're kind of one and the same. Which you can't really have a nerdier job than comic artist, I don't think, if you're also a nerd. Some of them are cool, but it's not me.
So,
That's not true, sorry. I tried to get there fast, Jack, sorry. We think you're cool, don't we, boys and girls?
do we think Jack's cool?
No, I wasn't fishing. Not fishing.
Jack.
I am not cool.
Jack.
That's worse in a way, isn't it?
100 times worse.
It's picking up on the subtle cues that are important in this film. I mean, you can see from the comedy that is rife on this stage that you guys have known each other for quite some time. So tell me a little bit, because I think a lot of people don't understand when the comic went away. A lot of people weren't happy about that and just wanted to keep going. Tell me a little bit about how the three of you sort of first started working together and got to know each other.
Well, wasn't it that there was a fan club that started in that was an official fan club, wasn't it, that started?
I don't know if it's official, but it was like, it wasn't Hasbro, but it was sort of like the fan club.
But Marvel UK, didn't it appear in Marvel UK, send off a thing?
So I never saw the Marvel UK one. My first experience to it was, I mean, you could be right, but I remember the end of the UK Generation 2 comic.
Yeah.
There was an ad of This Never Ends, and that was for Transmasters UK.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how, right, okay. Okay, got it. So then Transmasters UK was how we all met.
Yeah. There was there was no internet then.
No.
So it was like send off a Santa Dress envelope to, and it was to a chap, I think in that instance it was a chap called Matt Dallas, who is in the building and stuff.
Yeah.
He's responsible for so much, guys, you have no idea. And he was kind of the editor, but also the main creative force behind a thing called the Continued Generation 2. And it started from issue 13. Generation 2 finished issue 12, and then Matt and crew started off with issue 13, and it was kind of the first example of like a shared universe, kind of in fandom as well. They it was trying to keep it official. Yeah, it was official in that sense that it was it was tied into everything in Marvel Comics was canon. We're trying to keep it going in that direction. It was all like disparate creators doing it, but it was all kind of to the one hint sheet. And it was kind of weird. It kind of stifled is the wrong word, but it kind of limited some options because we kind of all thought, well, we have to stick within this.
Well, there were a couple of elements within that, and I say elements, when I say elements, I'm talking about people. There were a couple of people, let's just say that, a couple of people in that club who were very, very rigid on continuity. Yeah. And it was never the case that you had to kind of submit your idea and have it approved. But it was kind of implying.
It was understood that doing this, there was like a series Bible essentially, wasn't there?
Yeah.
That only had everything that happened in Marvel UK in like sort of word, text, whatever. It would have tied into what the club had already produced preceding years before, kind of. And then it'd be bubbling under. You probably know a bit more about this, Jim.
Well,
sorry.
I didn't want to say.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Before these guys, these late comers arrived on the scene. So Transmasters UK was an American unofficial fan club, and it started in probably 86, actually 87, and then 1990 sort of made it over to the UK, Transmasters UK, this offshoot, and there was a letter in the UK comic at the stage where if you knew a bit about things, you knew that its days were numbered. You knew that if you understood that it was reprinting American comics, and there was a letter in there which said the American comic had finished, so you could kind of work out that and generally we talked before about the ubiquity of Transformers in the mid-80s. It was dead. In 1991 there was just the comic and the toy range and maybe a video, no more merchandising. So it was in its death throes, even though the material was great. And there was a letter from a guy called John Moore, and he wrote in and said, "Oh, there's a fan club, and send your stamp address envelope to this address," which I did. And then I got back Trans Talk, which was the newsletter, issue 4, so it was up and running. And there's probably about 30 people in the club then. And we'd, a bit like the Sex Pistols, everybody would do, a fanzine, if you remember. And it was great, and then it existed at the time when the UK comic, as I said, hadn't finished, and there was an article about how, the UK comic's going to carry on, it's going to go monthly and stuff, but it didn't. Anyway, as you were saying, I mean, what set it apart from kind of just being a collection of pen pals was a very high level of creativity within the club, a lot of people drawing and writing stories, and this very unusual, particularly in hindsight, sort of collaborative effort. Even if people weren't working together, which they did occasionally, you'd have respect for, okay, well this has got to fit in to the storyline. So that I then kind of drifted away a bit, and when I came back in the mid-90s, it was still going, and there was this continued Generation 2 comic, which really was, because we all thought that's it, GT tried and failed, the franchise is dead, that continuity is dead, so we'll pick it up. But I came along, Matt Dallas had launched the magazine, you've joined, and then, and that's when we...
Yeah, I didn't send off that little form. It was much later for me, I think 95. And that was because Matt Dallas and I happened to live in the same town, and I was working at Toys R Us part-time, and he joined staff, and he said, I was buying, it was still available then, I was buying Transformers, and we got talking, and he said, well, I do this fanzine, are you interested? And actually, no, that's how I remember it. That's not true, because I was speaking to him about it last night. The comic shop owner had said, there's a guy who does a Transformer, he knew I was a Transformers fan, there's a guy who does a Transformers fanzine, his name's Matt Dallas, and I think he's just started working at Toys R Us, and so I've had it backwards in my mind for a while. Anyway, you don't really need to know that. He did bring me into it, and it was exactly what I needed at that time. I was just on the cusp of, or I had just left college, and I'd just got full-time, with the idea that I was going to be doing this full-time job and finding a way to teach myself how to be a comic artist, because I'd done 3 years of art college, 1 year of it which was great and very creative, and then I went, and that was like at a technical college, then I went across to an actual art college, and it was awful. I completely lost faith in art education. No one was able to teach me what I wanted to know, and I wanted to know comics. So I didn't do a degree, I just did those 3 years of like foundational. And my idea was, I'm going to work at Toys R Us, and I'm going to, when I'm at home, I'm going to train myself. And then along came this opportunity for my work to be seen. So I had an audience. So rather than just kind of creating in isolation and kind of feeling my way through, there was this ready-made audience who were willing to kind of lap it up.
When I got back in, I said to Matt, what do I miss? And he sent me this big collection of back issues. And I remember the punchline here is that I saw these two their art for the first time, but it was, you could almost put it alongside those formative moments we were talking about earlier, because the standard actually was high, but these guys were on a different level, and so the flagship comic continued Generation 2. There's that sense of discipline, so the plots were mapped out, and it had this big double-sized issue 25, which Nick drew, and I just could not believe, it's like when you see, I know it's a bad analogy, but in the old days, fanzines were like photocopies and staples, and these days, you get professionally produced magazines that are indistinguishable from pop. And this is professional art in a fanzine. And I remember you had the two, manta ray, handcuffed and dangling from Megatron's shoulder, right? And I thought, God. And then alongside that was Beast Wars, I think you were doing, wasn't it? So just phenomenally good. And I don't want to hog the mic, but it's another thing to say. As we were talking about our experiences just now about how we thought this was the end of the franchise and it was amazing to find a community. I think we will be the only generation that will see Transformers fail. Because I think now it's an evergreen brand. There'll always be some offshoot, some relaunch. It's just too big to fail. There'll always be something keeping it alive. But early 90s, that never happened to things. Things died and they stayed dead. And that, plus being pre-internet, it was hard to find other people that liked it.
Yeah, well, I remember as a teenager just feeling terribly isolated in general, because I still like Transformers in an Irish town. I was the arty kid who likes musicals and stuff like that. I just couldn't put any more targets on my back. And I just remember kind of cutting myself off socially a lot as well, and then this lifeline, and it really was that sense of something coming through on the map, because they tried to keep it roughly to a monthly schedule, and if not that, it was every 2 months. It was very, very regular, and if that's continued Generation 2, there's lots of other fanzines and stuff, especially in the UK, because yours was Brothers in Arms, was it yours?
We did a a collaborative miniseries. I did Trans Text, which was a prose book.
Yeah, which I only read much after when they reprinted those and stuff. But yeah, because I remember like James was so edgy that he had the Transformers saying "bastard" in a comic.
Honestly,
Sorry.
there was no holds barred.
And then you were the first person to do an official Transformers medium then as well. Like, so it's, but yeah, like that sort of scene, like, yeah, I remember, you wrote the story, it was a Ground Shaker, the story set in like a Ground Shaker Micromaster tank under siege sort of thing.
It was all,
Yeah, I remember that being sort of like, again, that sort of like, holy flip. Because the standard is really high, it was genuinely really high, and we're not just saying this because the 3 was wrong, but like, you sort of saw these little signs, these little ripples, you're like, oh, hang on, something's different now. And I do have to say that, especially Matt, he's a creative powerhouse and stuff. His storytelling is incredible, and he just draws really pleasing Transformers, and he's a great writer, and he's responsible for so much. But yeah, I remember Jack sort of came on the scene, we've talked about it personally and stuff like that, but I think there was a little bit of like, oh.
It's like when you're the fastest in school.
Yeah.
Oh,
but I am the best at drawing in the class. Who is this? And vice versa. And we circled each other for years. We were never pen pals with each other, or James and I really. But as the internet kind of came up, became accessible, and message boards showed up. We kind of all became members of the Hub, which is like the Transmasters UK forum, and that's run by Graham Thompson. And again, someone who's had an incredible, or maybe unseen influence, because so many people who were like members on that board end up kind of working professionally in comics. I think John Paul Buckley was on there as well, but Gav Spence was on there, and Ted Peary is over there. Andy Turnbull, of course, like, you know, he's like a powerhouse of this, like, you know. So there was more kind of relatively instant social interaction and stuff like that. I remember sort of like, kind of again being even more sort of dicey once I saw Jack's acerbic words, kind of, and how kind of.
Yeah, I was really, I had an attitude problem back then. I was very angry at that point. Early 20s.
Yeah, so we met as one, I suppose.
Yeah, that was when we actually met, and there was what was it called? Transforce. Yeah, that was.
That's our actual origin, isn't it? Where we free to speak for the first time.
Yeah. No, we met because we
worked together.
Yeah, we did the Prime story. You came down to Bromley, went to the pub.
Fine.
But I was really resentful because I was in a job that I hated. I'd been out of college by then for 6 years. Wasn't getting to where I wanted to be. I was angry all the time. I was in a horrible relationship, and which was I've come to learn since was very toxic. So my whole life was just awful, and my outlet was, unfortunately for everyone else who was experiencing it, the Hub. Because I was saying some really kind of not spiteful, but just grumpy. And
let you off the hook though. I will let you off the hook, because unfortunately as well, we're blokes of a certain age.
Yeah.
On the internet when that was a certain age.
Yeah.
And like we're nothing like massively dark, but it's kind of, you know, we like you and I would try to be as edgy as we could with each other. Sort of.
Yeah. And I went to this Transforce, and I met James and I knew Matt. The one that was left was Nick Roche, and I was like, I'm thinking, I just don't even know I like this.
Yeah, same, absolutely same. And I had no idea what he looked like, and I thought he'd be really tall, sort of kind of like waspish and camp. Yeah, was my thing. Stuff like maybe I was projecting.
No, I
guess I was at that time.
I thought the image in my mind of you was weirdly Alex Milne.
And I've been trying to live up to that image ever since in everything I do. You said a potato fondling. No, you didn't say that.
And then we did meet in the trader room, really busy, really hot trader room, and kind of fell in love a little bit.
It really was. It was in me. I just remember going home thinking I just met my best friend.
Yeah. We were like glued to one another for the whole weekend. I wasn't even coming back on that second day.
There's the one, and I made plans very, very soon after to go visit Jack.
Yeah.
Suddenly dawns on me that while you three are like meeting and stuff, I'm wandering around the trader hall buying Beast Wars.
So we were all somebody.
Yeah, like.
But the same with James, like it's a big click with James, and like within months, like James was sending me mix CDs and stuff. He was sending me a Divine Comedy like mix CD that he made, and it was just like it was.
Same bastard.
Yeah.
That was the edges I got, by the way.
I'm getting goosebumps.
It's true though, because I mean, you know, that sort of kind of shields up sort of way of talking to each other on the hub before we met.
Yeah.
It's very much still there.
Yeah.
And it would be weird if we didn't talk to each other like that.
No.
But it's tough to acknowledge. It's nice hearing it as well, because I definitely felt the same. It's sort of like, it wasn't just sort of like, oh, he likes Transformers,
No.
or he's good at drawing, and I don't hate him for it. It was just like, oh my god, he's just like the best fun ever.
Yeah, and it was all of the, you know, it wasn't just, we found out it wasn't just Transformers.
Yeah,
It was
definitely,
literally everything else.
Yeah, but just we were so like, yeah, I think at that time like Jack and I were closer to sort of like, or more focused on me wanting to be comic artists, and we're trying really super hard to do it. Like you were a bit more grown up than we were at that stage.
I was married.
You were married,
yeah,
the way sort of thing. When we first met James, because like, you know, carrying a massive suitcase walking through Transforce on this sweaty hot day, and that suitcase just had stuffed with copies of his fan pamphlet Eugenesis. No, we knew that via the online, the fan club or whatever, that James had written the Transformers novel, and it's going to be the first Transformers novel, and it's going to be available at Transforce, and you kind of have to have your name down ahead of it, sort of thing. So I think I had like, so yeah, James like flogging his novel or whatever, but like just a vivid memory of sort of like kind of like a suitcase full of Eugenicises.
that was not the first time I'd met him, as
No, exactly. Yeah.
But here's the thing, because we met a few times in the pub, and we kind of discussed ideas because we did the Prime Christmas story,
which I want to say at the time, there's a continued Transformers Generation 2. I think it was issue 25. No, it wasn't issue 25. It felt like it was a milestone issue, but it was a Christmas issue, and there's a story called Atonement, and I big it up every time I can. And it's the Transformers Christmas story you've always wanted, and it's just, again, that felt the level of professionalism. James's script and Jack's writing, and it's an absolute tearjerker of a story of Optimus Prime finding his way. And it's all to do with kind of the follow-on from Marvel continuity and the G2 continuity. So there's a lot of continuity heavy stuff that's led Prime to this moment, but it's a pure Optimus Prime story, and it's still so good. It's still like, when I was kind of bundling my other kind of fanzines and stuff, that's the one I kind of keep that handy in my old room and stuff. So yeah, it's try and track it down on eBay, guys.
So when he came into Transforce with his heaving suitcase, he kind of walked past me, and I made a beeline for him, because you know, I said online, I really want Eugenesis, and I approached him. Bear in mind, we spent a fair bit of time together, and I said, "Morning, James," and he looked up and he said, "Hi, have we met?"
Yes!
I was like, "Yes, it's Jack," and he went, "Oh, you know what it is? You're wearing a hat." Born wearing a hat, James.
I've got goosebumps thinking about that.
See, I don't remember that.
Oh, nothing escapes this steel trap.
Oh God, no, it's the bromance was too strong, I think.
It's a real year zero moment that like there's a long time to get to that bit. That's why we need editors, I suppose. But like that Transforce convention in 2001, and again because there was a really like a joint communal fanzine that was planned, and again had colour printing on the cover, and we all had like a kind of strip each in it. And
you signed one this weekend.
Oh, did you sign one?
Did you?
I signed an issue of Dark and Veil this weekend.
Did you really?
Because of my first ever published fan art.
Is it in there?
It's in an issue of Dark and Veil, and someone came up to me. So Jack's comic.
That would be Josh.
It would be. It was Josh. It was Josh. Yeah.
It was hot, Josh.
I wasn't going to say that. Well, I'm not disagreeing either. When Jack eventually broke through the comics industry, so then Jack became the first person I know to become a comic artist. He had his own creator-owned comic that ran for like 10 issues, and it was just insane. It's one of those sort of things where Jack almost hadn't realised that, like, oh, I don't have to do everything. And Jack did everything: lettering, colouring, everything, editing.
Yeah, the first issue I didn't do the lettering. I was like, the guy who ran the company was like, "Don't worry, I'll do the lettering," and it was shocking.
He did lettering the same way as he did everything else then.
Yes, yeah. So I lettered from issue 2 onwards, and then when it was reprinted a few years ago, I re-lettered issue 1 because it was
it's
good.
a comic, but I did a piece of art for it using my rudimentary Photoshop skills, which I learned because Jack gifted me how to colour in Photoshop comic made by Antarctic Press or whatever. And that, like, one of the first things I remember sort of like colouring from start to finish was a piece of fan art. So my first ever published work in a real comic, a big boy comic, was Dark and Veil, and someone asked me to sign that this weekend as well.
awesome.
That's fantastic. And I love the fact that we're talking about Transforce 2001 and the fact that, you all got to meet, because hopefully, you come to TF Nation and maybe in 10 or 15 years' time, we'll have people who've met at the convention and telling the same stories. Chaps, I could listen to you talk for hours.
Oh, you could. You're really
I could,
nice.
but unfortunately, I am a stickler for time, and we have run out. But I'm sure you guys will be at the bar to continue this epic story.
Continue Generation 2, continue discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. A big round of applause.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Right, okay. Having fire with us, and we will be right back very, very shortly. Thanks a lot.